Hi, welcome back to the Podsmoker's Bible. My name is Zion. I'm the author of the Podsmoker's Bible, which contains the prophetic book of Zion, where I get my name and authority. It comes from the Ketuvim, or Old Testament, from the Bible. Today, we're talking about the fourth part of the 21st chapter of the book of the Podsmoker's Bible and the 18th chapter of the book of Zion. This is the first part of the dissertation. And we begin today with Jeremiah 14:19, which is Zion 18:1. Hast thou utterly rejected Judea? Hath thy soul loathed Zion? Why hast thou smitten us? And there is no healing for us? We looked for peace, and there is no good, and for a time of healing, and behold, trouble. Jeremiah asks God if they have cast off Israel, both Judea and Zion. We wonder if God has truly turned away. Israel is an embattled nation with enemies on every side. Zion is a mystery. But the world is in chaos. There is no peace. We all suffer from health issues. Trouble and scandal rules the day. It seems as though God himself hates the drug users. We have no hope. We are backed into a corner. We wonder why we are made to suffer. Even we, in our moments of stress, wonder at the cruelty of man and the absence of God. We have been suffering for our election as Zionites for 80 years. In biblical terms, that equals 2 generations. The hardships caused by the prohibition has escalated. The first generation was subject to jail, prison, deportation, and fines. Now we are robbed, our children taken from us, we are imprisoned, monitored, brainwashed, and gunned down in the streets. We suffer because we found God. And that is the most crucial point of the prophecy. We, the pot smokers of the world, found God. We got turned on genetically. We became a higher form of humanity. We, who are able, have become telepathic. We can hear the voice of the gray. We can use our higher brain functions. We alone of all humanity know God one to one. That is the truth of the prophecy. Pot smokers find God on high, using God's abilities. We were created in God's images. The tree of life was forbidden from the human race. That tree of life is what makes us God, because we evolve into our true form. We become as God. We know that we are eternal beings that transmigrate from one body to another. We have become like God, having found our way to the tree of life, marijuana. When I first realized that my pot plant was a teraphim and therefore a tree, I realized that it was the tree of life from Scripture. It became sacred to me, and the high changed. I became holy. I began to walk a sacred path where everything became holy. I became a priestess. I cannot smoke marijuana without God present, and I do not ever plan on living without the presence of God. A Christian goes to church every Sunday. They get all dressed up and show the world that they belong to Jesus, their God. I smoke marijuana and speak to a living God that responds to my voice. Pot equals God. God equals gray. Gray equals ancient blue-skinned alien gods. That is what I believe. So to my way of worshiping my God, I get high. I cannot and I will not give up my truth. Pot allows me and my people to speak to aliens. Psalms, that's what it was. 79:11, Zion 18:2. Let the sighing of the prisoners come before thee. According to the greatness of thy power, preserve thou those that are appointed to die. Psalm 79:11. Please, Gray, who are God, listen to the sighing of the prisoners. Witness their suffering. Feel the separation imposed upon us by the state. The worst part of prison is our separation from God. When we go into prison, our level of THC declines until it bottoms out. At that point, our link is severed, and we can no longer communicate directly, and we can sigh. That's all that they hear. Sighing. Silence. This separation is perhaps what the government intends. The only way to prevent the arrival of the gray is to prevent gray humans from connecting to the gray through marijuana. Once a person turns on their gray DNA, the only way to prevent connection is to prevent pot use. The base human society that believes in false gods and their right to use the earth however they like at the expense of the poor do not want the gray alien gods of our ancient past to land in front of the world's eye. They are doing everything they can to prevent it because they will have to give up their money and their power base, their base society. But it's not the gray that are the ones to blame for our suffering. We, the children of the gray, have rejected our creators. We have turned away from God. And in so doing, we have rejected the true God. So they, the gray, wait to give us aid. Psalms 68, 5 and 6, Zion 18, 3 and 4. A father to the fatherless, and a judge of the widows, is God in his holy habitation. God setteth the solitary in families. He bringeth out those that are bound in chains, but the rebellious dwell in a dry land. Psalm 68 says that the gray are the judges. They are the true authority on earth. They have prior ownership claim to this planet. They may have exited in mass 3,000 years ago, but they never gave up their rights to rulership and parentage of humanity. They have the right to be the judges of earth. When the gray first came to earth, their entire civilization came here. They were a wandering species looking for a planet that could sustain them. They negotiated a deal with our human ancestors, our Neanderthal ancestors, to co-own this planet. But humanity so threatened the Neanderthals that they chose to move to a different world, one that they, but not the gray, could live on. At that point, the gray became the sole ruling body on Earth. Humanity was far too primitive to rule, being violent and chaotic by their primitive nature. Because the gray are our parents, we will always be subject to their authority. That is until we grow up enough to be sent out on our own, so to speak. But we, who are the children, can't decide if we are old and wise enough to be our own judges. So we as children are under the authority of our parents. The gray represent both parents, having contact with our Neanderthal race also. So the gray are the judges. They have already judged the case. They have already ruled in favor of their gray children, who, by the way, are the fatherless and the single mothers, the widows of this society. The death of the family unit makes every single mother a widow. of the war on drugs. The judge has ruled. We who use drugs are in the right. When the Grey arrive to enact their prophecy, they will end the oppression. They will release the prisoners. They will set the solitary in families. The arrival of the Grey, in response to the call of the Zionite people, will fulfill the prophecy. I plan on reuniting families, not in a traditional sense, but in a way to have parents live um, with or as near as possible to their offspring. When our housing guild places people, they will place mothers and fathers in the same home as the child they share, if possible. Families must always have priority. When we are safe and free in Zion, our enemies will be suffering the effects of global warming and climate change. It is projected that the breadbasket of the world will become a desert, a dry land, and when the aquifer is depleted, it will become very dry. So the rebellious will live in a dry land. Isaiah 41:17, Zion 18:5. When the poor and the needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongue faileth for thirst, I, the Lord, will hear them. I, the God of Israel, will not fail them. Isaiah 41:17 is one of those timeline passages that pinpoints the unique events of the time when this all happens. When the earth becomes so polluted by the greed of society that people can no longer find clean water to drink, when the people can't afford to buy water that has been purified, that will not they will not be able to find safe water to drink. That has been happening now for many years. This is the time of the prophecy. Excuse me. The God of Israel will not forsake the poor. God will not forsake Israel. God will not forsake Zion. God will not turn a deaf mind to the suffering of the Greys or the humans. They may not be able to hear the thoughts of humans, but they still care deeply for them. The true living God of Israel will not forsake humanity. Psalms 103:6, Zion 18:6. The Lord executeth righteousness and judgment for all who are oppressed. The great execute righteousness and judgment for all who are oppressed. This means that God is and always has been the God that hates oppression. And as such, anyone, and indeed everyone, who is subject to oppression can count on the Grey for assistance. That being said, the Grey are our archetypes of history, have given aid to other oppressed people. Our history is full of dictators and empires that have been undermined by those oppressed, and the oppressed have always overcome their oppressors in time. And I'm going to stop right there, and we'll take up on the rest of this particular passage in Psalms, and we'll bring up, and I will talk to you next time. So, until then, may the Grey watch over you, guide you, protect you, keep you from all harm, and teach you right from wrong. May you always be worthy of them. May your thoughts, words, and deeds speak truth, life, and good. May you always be happy and high. Know that I love you. We'll be together soon. Later, because I'll never say goodbye.